Yeah, I know you're tired of it. I am too, believe it or not. This gets old, but it is what it is, man. We're going to keep talking about it until Tuesday, November 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is the Detroit Lions and making a trade for a pass rusher at the trade deadline. Now, I did see from Adam Schefter today, he was on some ESPN show, and he was discussing that he believes that the Detroit Lions are going to make a trade for a pass rusher, having that inside information, and that the two highest on his list is Zadarius Smith from Cleveland and Azeez Ojulari from the New York Giants. Now, here's the thing. I saw yesterday morning, which would be Wednesday morning, that the Giants would have to be, quote, blown away to trade Azeez away. The thing about Azeez is he is on an expiring contract, the end of his rookie deal. You already paid Brian Burns. You have to decide what you're going to do. Kayvon Thibodeau. Can you believe that Kayvon is entering his fourth year? So you got contract extension versus fifth-year option. One of those Penei Sewell type things. So then you have Zadarius Smith, and he seems to be the name that is tied with the Detroit Lions. However, we talked about it last night. The Cleveland Browns could get a little too risky, a little too greedy, and decide to up the bidding price for Zadarius Smith. And with that being said, the Detroit Lions could shift to a guy that has a lot of familiarity with both Aaron Glenn and Coach Dan Campbell, and that is Trey Hendrickson. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the most out of all the people we've talked about from the very beginning the most realistic has been Trey Hendrickson. I think that this is a guy that could come in and we could have Hutch, number 97, and number 91. Now, the problem is Levi currently wears 91. I'm sure that won't matter for the time being. Trey will be under contract for next season. Levi may not be on the team, so 91 could open then, assuming Levi doesn't want to give his number away. Trey Hendrickson would be my number one choice. He would be my number one choice to bring in a pass rusher at the trade deadline. Here's what Kevin Patra from NFL.com had to say about the possibility of Trey joining the Detroit Lions. Says, I'm still not convinced the Bengals will be sellers despite a dismal start to the season. It's simply not how they usually operate. However, Hendrickson did make a contract-driven trade request in the offseason. That was back in April. We reported on that. And perhaps Cincy will make a move now rather than risk going through a similar situation heading into the final year of Hendrickson's deal in 2025. Now, I want you to pay close attention to that as we continue. Trey is going into the final year of his deal. He's under 30 right now. I think he might be 30 or about to turn 30. Either way, he's up there when it comes to pass rushers. But I want you to keep in mind that he's going into the last year of his deal. He continues, if Raiders star pass rusher Max Crosby is truly off the table, the Lions should chase Hendrickson. I agree 100%. Chase Hendrickson. Detroit presumably has institutional knowledge of the player, given that head coach Dan Campbell and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn were both part of the staff in New Orleans during Hendrickson's time with the Saints from 2017 to 2020. He plays with the type of motor Campbell loves and would fit in the locker room. That's 2 wins for us to get Trey. With 7 sacks and 36 QB pressure so far, Hendrickson has continued to be a weapon off the edge. And yes, this guy is double-teamed quite a bit as well. He did not get any sacks last game, but he got 2 sacks the game before that to have 7 on the season. Now, his contract was $14 million this year. I believe it's somewhere around the same price next year, and he wanted an extension. The thing about Trey Hendrickson that you could do is we've already extended Elaine McNeil. We've got to decide what they're going to do with Hutch, and we could also extend Trey as well, because after that, you're talking about Kirby Joseph at this point. Kirby will be going into year 4 next year, and they have to decide what they're going to do with him. I don't foresee any type of holdout or anything like that, so they might wait till the end of the season is over. It's definitely getting to the point where we're going to have to pay pipers. That's 100%. Big-time players make big-time plays. They get big-time pays, right? That is what is going to wind up happening. Trey Hendrickson, to me, is the biggest. He is the guy that I think I want the most because of his motor, the fact that he knows Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn. And you're talking about that's what the Detroit Lions do a lot. And I believe he might have also played with Alex Anzalone as well. Now, here is the key heading into week 9. And that's why I wanted you to pay attention to what was said. Says that Hendrickson is heading into the final year of his deal. Here's the situation. The Cincinnati Bengals never think they're out of it. Joe Burrow says that they could win 7 of the last 9. They wind up going 10-7, and they may make the playoffs. Right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are just outside of the playoffs. I think they are seed 9 at this point, I believe. The AFC is just abysmal this year. So now they play somebody, and we need their help. Now, they play the Las Vegas Raiders. We need the Las Vegas Raiders to pull off an upset. If the Cincinnati Bengals drop to 3-6, that is more of an incentive to trade away Trey Hendrickson. If they go to 4-5, that's more of an incentive to keep them. Now, they have to win their division to make it. There's no doubt about it. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers lead that division at 6-2. They have not the Cincinnati Bengals have played one game in division, and they lost it to the Baltimore Ravens. They still have the Ravens once coming up very soon. It happens after the trade deadline. They've got the Steelers twice and the Browns twice. Browns aren't going anywhere, so their competition is really going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who right now have a 3-game lead on them. So for the Bengals to make it, if you follow the Bengals to make it, they probably are going to have to win the division, which seems very unlikely. And then you have this case as well. How far are you going to go? Cincinnati Bengals. If you make it to the big dance or the dance, how far are you realistically going to go? Do you think you can get back to the 2021 days of making the Super Bowl? Now, why does that matter? Why does all of that stuff matter? Because Trey Hendrickson's value to the Cincinnati Bengals will decrease every single game. Once the trade deadline passes, they're stuck with him the rest of the season. So now they have to hope that he doesn't get injured, and then they have to decide what they're going to do with him in the offseason. In the offseason, he's going to be less expensive than he is right now because he will be on an expiring contract. Right now, you have him for the rest of this year and next year. If they decide not to part ways with him, whether they're winning or losing, because for me, if I don't think I'm making the Super Bowl, I trade him away. And that's not even being biased at all. I have to be making the Super Bowl because at that point, what are we all doing it for? We're not doing it to make the playoffs. We're not doing it to make the championship. We're doing it to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So if the Bengals don't think they can do that, they need to let him go. Also, they're not going to pay him next year. You know why? Because they have to pay Jamar Chase. And they're going to let T. Higgins walk. They're not going to pay both those wide receivers. They're not going to pay Trey Hendrickson. They got to worry about Chase. Then they're probably going to decide what they're going to do with T. And then they are going to probably eventually trickle down to Trey Hendrickson. They also disregarded his contract extension request in the offseason. So I think that he's still playing. He's not holding out. He's not causing any trouble. He's doing what he's paid to do. But at the same time, it's some bad blood there. It is some bad blood there. So I think that Trey Hendrickson is the most ideal fit for the Detroit Lions at the trade deadline. So you are rooting. If you're still holding out for Max Crosby, you go right ahead. You go right ahead. A win there will help us tremendously. He's not going anywhere. Trey, however, is a real possibility. So if you are rooting for the Detroit Lions to get Trey Hendrickson, you are going to be rooting for the Las Vegas Raiders to beat them on Sunday. I know it's unlikely. The Raiders are a bad football team, but a 3-6 Cincinnati team is much more willing to sell than a 4-5. See, 4-5 keeps them in hunt for the division because, again, as we discussed, that's the only way they're going to make the playoffs. Let's do something real quick because I did this on my other channel, and I want to do this on this channel as well. I want you guys to know, just so you know, if you see me around, if you see me on different channels, you see me on different channels because they all serve different purposes, okay? So that's what is happening there. All right, let's go to teams. Let's go to playoff picture. And let's see what we're doing here. Let me bring this in real quick. And again, I did this on my other channel. Right now, the Bengals are 9th. Check this out. Right now, they have a 28% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose against the Raiders, it drops 13% from 28 to 15. If they win, it only goes up 7% from 28 to 35. So right now, they have a less than 30% chance to make the playoffs. A loss drops them down to 15. A win only takes them up. They fall further with a loss than they move up with a win. So either way it goes, with a win this week. Now, that will change based on how teams start to win and such. But even with the win, it's still at 35%. Now, if you contrast that to the Detroit Lions, if we go up here, right now, the Detroit Lions are currently 94% to make the playoffs. If they lose to the Packers, 90. If they win, it's all but guaranteed at 7-1. So look at our drop. It literally drops 4%. It raises 4%. So we're in a good situation. Cincinnati Bengals, however, are not. So they have to decide what's more valuable. A empty push to the Super Bowl, let's be real. They got to go through the Baltimore Ravens. They got to go through the Kansas City Chiefs. They got to go through the Buffalo Bills. They got to go through the Houston Texans. Or do they get the most value they can from Trey Hendrickson, which will only be right now? It's not going to be next year. And then the year after that, they either tag him or he gets to walk. All right. So it will only be right now. So the Cincinnati Bengals, listen, the Detroit Lions are in a good spot. Cincinnati may think they have all the power, but they might have control, but they don't really have leverage. Because again, the highest value you're going to get for Trey Hendrickson is at this moment. You will never get what you would get now. Again, you will never get that. He's getting older. If you even decided to extend him next year and y'all work everything out, he's getting older. He's not getting younger. You're not going to get any higher value for Trey Hendrickson than you will November 5th at 4 o'clock. It's not going to happen. So if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I trade him. If I'm the Detroit Lions, I chase him. I want him on this team. We say, listen, help us make this Super Bowl push next year. Let us get Aiden out the way. We got to decide what we're going to do with Kirby, and then we got you. We got you. And guess what? You're going to help us win for a long time. So let me know your thoughts, man. This is my guy. Well, I've been talking a lot, Harold Landry. I thought that, you got all this stuff. This is my guy, though. This is the guy I've been on since I heard he wanted to trade. And after, Miles and Max and stuff are cool. But how realistic were they? This guy here, though, he's a real, and he is a defensive end in every sense of the word. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. On a push to get to 25K by Tuesday at 4 o'clock. We were rolling for a minute. Now we're kind of stuck where we are. We got about 800 plus to go. I think it's like 8:30. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the trade deadline will help that happen. But if you have not subscribed and you've been watching me for a while, consider doing that. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. Take care of yourself and each other and make smart choices. And as always, go Lions.